Okay, we might make a start. Before we do start, though, I'd like to do an acknowledgement of country. So before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the country on which we are meeting today. I know we're on many different lands with many traditional owners, but I'm currently presenting from the land of the Bunurong people from the Kulin Nation down here in Victoria. And I'd like to acknowledge them and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, and culture. And I'd like to pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I also acknowledge that Aboriginal families have cared and educated children on this land for tens of thousands of years. So this photograph that you can see here is of my parents' place in Golgol, and that is on the border at the right at the bottom of New South Wales in the west. So this is on Karenji land and waters, and it's what Golgol is what to believe to be in Karenji or Barkinji language, means meeting place or meeting of the waters. But the confirmation of the language, however, is not clear, which is a reminder of the continued losses that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people experience today, and the reason why acknowledgement is so important, as is reconciliation. So this is the Murray River, and during winter time, over 100 pelicans gather there. And the pelicans are known to the Barkinji people as the Billamuk, and they gather there. They start off in twos, and the twos sort of scout for the fish, and then all of a sudden you see this amazing flock of pelicans gliding in like a whole heap of aeroplanes. It's quite magnificent to watch. So the pelicans are really social birds, and they often eat together, fly together, find homes together for nesting. But they're a reminder of the importance of community connections and how, as a community, we support each other and grow together. And that's what this community is all about for family daycare. For me, my name is Sharryn Clarke, and I am your facilitator for tonight. My background is in early childhood, so I've worked in kindergartens, I've managed long daycare, I've worked for the Department of Education in Victoria, both in assessment and rating, but also in what we call down here is early childhood improvement branch, which is supporting services in their capacity building. And I've also lectured at Monash University. Lots of different experiences, and worked in early intervention as well. So that's sort of my background, very much 30 years of early childhood every day of my life, which I've absolutely loved. So tonight, this PD in Your Pocket is funded by the New South Wales Family Daycare Association in partnership with Peak Training. There's an accompanying booklet that will be sent to you, or it may already have been sent to you, but it's also available along with the recording of this session on the website at the link on your screen, if you can see that there. If you're listening as a podcast, the link is www.nswfdc.org.au/PD in your pocket. That's a nice URL there. A survey will be sent to you after the live session as well, so please complete the survey to help us to continue to provide you with quality professional development for free. And thank you for everyone who's filled in last month's survey. Certificates will only be issued to you if you are attending this session live, so you'll receive them within a week from the live session date, and they'll include your name, the name you registered with. And there's usually about 1,000 participants each session, so there won't be any amendments to names or anything, so please make sure that it's correct. Please check your junk mail as well, just in case it gets sent there. Sometimes it does. And if after a week you still haven't received it, please contact us at info@peaktraining.edu.au. Okay, so tonight we're going to look at play, the power of play in family daycare. What is play and what is its purpose? We're being present and intentional in play. What does that look like? The safety considerations in risky play as well. So all the things we need to think about when we're immersed in play, and play in the early years planning cycle. So in terms of the housekeeping for tonight's live session, I'll be encouraging you to use the chat function, which I can see you already are, and there's thousands of comments already made there, which is great, and welcoming and greetings. You can also use the reaction button, and at the end we may have some time for questions, so you can use the Q&A function for that right at the very end of the session. And tonight I'm joined by a member of the association team, Ethan, who can assist you with any tech support you may need. But if all else fails and something gets stuck, just find that leaving and rejoining the meeting might work for you. Okay, so when you registered, you would have answered some questions. So we've looked at that data, and this is what we learnt. So when it came to having a good understanding of the importance of play in children's learning and development, we saw that 93% of you have a good understanding, which is fantastic. 6% have some understanding and 1% unsure, and less than 1% of no understanding. So I hope by the end of this evening, if you're feeling that you weren't quite sure, that hopefully that will have bridged that gap for you tonight. In terms of identifying the ways children engage in play, there were 86 of you who could identify that. 13 can somewhat identify, 1% unsure, and less than 1% couldn't. So we're going to be talking about that. How do we identify play? When do we see those moments that we're going to be engaging in? And 85% confidently use play to support and extend children's thinking and recognise spontaneous learning opportunities. So this is, really important to know that, being confident in play is a crucial part of our role. So 14% of you do sometimes, 1% unsure, 1% not. So we're going to look at some spontaneous learning opportunities, and I've also got some stories to tell you about that as well. Using play to build trusting relationships to understand each child and to keep them safe. 94% of you said that you could do that, and to keep them safe. 5% sometimes, 1% unsure, and 1% not quite sure. So let's now have a look at how we perceive play and how play is perceived by others. So I found this beautiful quote here, but I have a question mark there because, when you look up quotes on the internet, you're trying to, read through and find one that really resonates. This really resonated with me, but there was a bit of a, discrepancy of it as to whether it was actually George Bernard Shaw who said this. But the sentiment is there. It's still there. We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. Okay, so play is critical to the human, to each human, the humankind. Do we play? Have we stopped playing? And if we did, when did we stop? Why did we stop? And what would happen if we started to play again? Sometimes we forget how to play. We become really busy with everyday life, and we forget what it's like to be playful, particularly if we're feeling stressed or anything like that in any moments in time. So it's really important to just sit with that and think, well, okay, if I've stopped playing, why? And what's going to stop me from playing in the future? Hopefully not much. So let's now have a think about what is play. So sometimes our very notion of play comes from experiences we've had as a child. And this experience interacts with any of the new ideas we have about play, and we keep coming back to them. So if we've had really beautiful connecting experiences with others, we remember and we try to recreate those experiences for children. So something you've remembered, that you really valued as a young child, we tend to recreate them. But if we've had negative experiences where play involved, being isolated or teased or bullied, we're sometimes a little bit wary of play and the freedom of play. And sometimes it can be an obstacle in our confidence to teach through play. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at these questions. And if you feel comfortable in the chat, tell us about your experiences in play. Now, this is where I need to find the rest of the chat here. I've got it in front of me now. Okay, so think back to when you were a very young child. How did you engage in play? Who did you play with? Where did you play? And what did play mean to you? What did you value in play? So for me, I was always outside. Yep, look at that. Played outside with neighbours. All childhood memories are outside. Yep, isn't that amazing? I grew up in the Mildura area, so over in New South Wales, in Golgol, and we were on a fruit block, and I was always outside, climbing trees, in the sand pit, riding my bikes down the vineyard. And you can see lots and lots of outside play, always outside, playing with neighbours, lots of free play, child-led play outside, bikes, cooking. And some of you grew up on a farm around animals. I was always around animals too. I loved my animals. And when we moved from Mildura, we moved to Shepparton, and we moved out and we had a farm. So I was always with the chickens. I was always with the calves because we had a dairy farm. So it was my job to go and feed the calves, and also look after the calves that had been abandoned by their mothers and try and, reconnect them. So, that was when I was about 8 or 9. So it's really incredible how much we remember our childhood as being outside as well. So you've got some amazing stories there, I can see already coming through there. Okay, but it's not always easy to define play. Even experts don't all agree on exactly what it is or how to categorize it. And you'll sit amongst a group of people all trying to define play. And it depends upon what theory or lens they're looking through. And that's because it does look differently across cultures and communities and different early childhood settings and schools as well. And what counts as play often depends on the values and traditions that people have and what we have. And as a family daycare educator or a teacher, play is a big part of the programs that you plan. So engaging in play is so important and part of your everyday practice. And the National Quality Standard has a really strong focus on play, opportunities of play that we provide for children. And that's because play provides such a positive impact for children and their learning outcomes. And there's so much research now being done on it, which we'll go into detail in a moment. Our philosophies that we have also guide how we include play in our settings and the way we interact with children. Are we comfortable with entering into play? Are we okay with imaginary play, role play? Do we see it as helpful to children's learning, the role play? And what opportunities do we provide for children to play with their friends independently and without interruptions or by themselves? Okay, what if some children love to play by themselves alone? I know I used to love playing by myself quite a bit. Out with the animals, they were my friends. And I think sometimes we forget that children love to play it alone and they value it equally as time spent with others as well. So the way we see play highly influences what we offer to children and how we involve ourselves in play. And the other thing our philosophy does is it guides our selection of resources, the way we set up our houses, the way we set up the learning environments, whether we have child-sized furniture or toys that imitate real things or having actual real things for children to play with. So these decisions are really crucial, and they require a lot of consideration from us. We don't make them lightly, and we continue using our knowledge and building what we know about play and how play impacts children's outcomes. And the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child highlights the child's right to play and influence decisions affecting them. So play is really powerful, and we're going to explore just how powerful it is. Okay, so this is obviously the brain, and you can see it's all lit up. So everything is, so many synapses lit up there. So let's think about what happens to the brain when we play. So scientists have been fascinated about how our brains work and how it changes over time. So what does play do to the brain then? The Centre for the Developing Child has studied play for a very long time, and particularly the interactions between adults and young children. They focus on how the brain reacts to the ongoing positive and negative experiences. And you can see this image is, it's got all the pathways there that develops from birth in the brain. And as children get older, the pathways start to, I guess, form more solid pathways. At first, there's just like an explosion of pathways. And then as we learn and get older, the pathways settle down a bit and they become more efficient in the brain. In early childhood, it's the most the brain will ever develop in a lifetime. And the neural pathways are influenced by both genetic factors, so they're the traits inherited from the child's biological parents, and experiences, whether positive or negative. The environment is really influential on the child's developing brain, which can lead to lifelong outcomes, positive or negative. And we're really seeing a lot of that research coming to light at the moment. Neuroscience also tells us the brain expects to receive the interactions from others. So it's wanting people to, interact. Back and forth conversations that children have with others build those neural pathways and make lots of connection. And that's what we refer to as brain architecture. So it's like a complicated building with lots of stories, rooms, hallways, all connecting as well. So these back and forth interactions are referred to as serve and return interactions. So it's a little bit like a game of tennis. So often play is the most effective way to include these types of interactions, as it can support positive experiences between the child and others, and it really gets the neurons firing up. When my niece was about 4 months old, I was over there, and I always loved to go and see her. She was just this gorgeous little happy baby. And I remember just sitting with her and talking to her backwards and forwards. And so she would be saying, and of course I would know exactly what she was talking about. And I would respond with actual words. I would say, really, I did not know that. That's quite amazing. What happened next? And then I'd stop, and then she would start again. And she would go, da 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 da. And in her mind, she was communicating to me. She learnt the process of communicating backwards and forwards. And we kept that up, I think, for about 10 minutes, which is a very long time. And it was quite incredible, because the whole time she was doing it with me, her facial expressions were different. So she would smile, or she would, have a little frown on her face, like she was trying to understand something. I think we had a really, really philosophical conversation. I just really wish I did understand everything that she said, because I think she had the secret of life there. So let's think about the next, what happens next. Okay. So when we're thinking about the positive serve and return interactions, They also help to reduce stress in the environment. So when there's a supportive go-to person available, providing support to the child, when they become upset, the brain architecture begins to expand, forming multiple neural pathways primed for learning and also for self-regulation. And when children are supported through their mistakes and encouraged to try again and have another go, their brain begins to tell them that learning to do something well takes time, practice, and exploration, similar to what Marley and I were doing. She knew the moment I started doing that, there's a way of communicating here, backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. And this is important in play. Play does this. And the players just aren't children. They're a range of people in children's lives, from their friends, family, their extended family, and of course, their family daycare educator. So when I was looking up all of the research regarding this for the Centre for the Developing Child, it says that there are 5 key steps to support development of the brain through these serve and return interactions. And the first one is to notice the serve and share the child's focus of attention. Then return the serve by supporting and encouraging. Give it a name. It helps them to understand the world around them and gives them language skills to enhance their skills in receptive and expressive language. Take turns, which can sometimes we have to have our patience there, so we have to wait. Keep the interaction going back and forth. And then practice endings and beginnings as well. And this really supports children to understand the whole process of stepping into engagement and moving on in a way that is part of that really important social interaction. So when we think of my niece, I noticed that she was wanting to speak to me. I could tell. I was sitting next to her. She was looking at me. She was initiating the conversation. And so I returned that serve by answering what I thought she was talking about, and I gave it a name. We started talking about what it is that, I guessed what she might be talking about. And we kept taking it in turns and taking it in turns until I recognized it was time to actually end it. And so we ended it, and I picked her up and we just sat and we got another doll. So we did something different then. So that sort of helps them realize that an interaction doesn't go on forever, but it also isn't a short snippet of time either. It's really important for them to understand that your engagement is there and that their engagement is valued. So now that we know how important play is on the developing brain, we can start to see how play benefits children. The Early Years Learning Framework version 2 states that play-based learning capitalizes on children's natural inclination to be curious, explore, and learn. So this means that children are naturally curious, and play is a really important way for them to test out their curiosities, find out new things, learn new things, show you new things that they've learned. You can see this image here. I think I've seen this. Many toddlers do similar things to this. So this image shows that the child is curious about whether he can sit on a small chair. Will he fit? Can it hold him? Who is the chair really meant for? And this playful curiosity encourages exploration and understanding of things like mathematics, measurement, with mathematics, language, literacy. And some statements and questions you could probably ask the child is, that's a very small chair. Do you think you'll fit on that? Do you think you're too big? Do you think it will break if you try? What are some other things we could put on the chair instead? How big should they be? Let's see if they fit a bit better. So it's not uncommon for us to quickly jump in and tell the child what to do if we see a potential problem, like, you're going to break the chair. Reacting too quickly, though, can sometimes stop the child from feeling that they can explore things freely. Safety is a priority, and teaching children to take care of their play equipment is extremely important. However, the way we respond is important. because that can interrupt that ongoing curiosity. So sometimes we need to remain calm and think of those questions to ask as we're interacting. So when I was teaching one time, I had a beautiful, beautiful co-educator, and she was well loved by all of the children and families. And I had this little boy start, and he would just cry and cry and cry, and he really struggled to be away from his family. And so I finally got him to a point where I'd sat with him, I talked a lot, and he was sitting there, and he had, he was doing some water painting, and I slowly moved across to another table, and he seemed okay. He'd stopped crying, it was fine, and he was painting. And then all of a sudden he tipped over the water paint, and it just went everywhere. And my darling co-educator goes, "No!" And this child, off he goes again, crying and crying and crying. So it was just that whole, he didn't mean to spill it, and it actually wasn't a problem. It was just a reaction. So sometimes we have to actually, just when we see something happening, just very gently and calmly go over and help guide them, and maybe ask those questions as well. And depending on how old the child is as well, you will know what language to use for them to be able to understand as well. So the EYF also goes into detail about how play is critical for children's learning and development. So it says that play-based learning allows for the expression of personality and uniqueness. It offers opportunities for multimodal play. It enhances thinking skills and lifelong learning dispositions such as curiosity, persistence, and creativity. It enables children to make connections between prior experiences and new learning, and to transfer learning from one experience to another. It also assists children to develop and build relationships and friendships, and develops knowledge acquisition and concepts in authentic contexts, builds a sense of identity, strengthens self-regulation and physical and mental well-being. So many things that play does. It is one of the most crucial ways that we engage with children and enable them that freedom, that creativity, and that opportunity to explore things in their time as well. So the framework recognises that play is a very important part of life, especially for all children and including school children. So My Time, Our Place, the framework for school age care, adds another idea about play, which is leisure. So leisure means having free time to relax or do enjoyable things such as playing. We need to remember that school-age children have been at school for a really long time. So there's lots of learning and instruction that they've been, engaged with all day long. And that sometimes when they come to our houses that they're actually just, they've had enough, they're a bit tired. And so they need some time also for rest, relaxation, and play. That doesn't mean we stop providing experiences that are based on learning and, very specific learning and goals that we have for them. But particularly in school age care, there's a stronger focus on them having more control over what they want to do themselves as well, how they want to play, whether they want to play alone or with others. Because when you've been around, a lot of children all day, sometimes they want to come and just, have some headspace, have some, time to themselves, and not always have to interact with others, read a book, or, just daydream sometimes even. In school age care settings, educators collaborate with children and young people to provide play and leisure opportunities that are meaningful and support their well-being, learning, and development. I've just had a note here, Ethan, there is something wrong with my audio connection. Can everyone hear me? Yep, you can hear me. Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you. Maybe if anyone's having problems with hearing me, maybe just check your speaker system to see if it's coming through. Awesome. Wonderful. So what I was actually going to talk about with this example is when, we think about school-age children that have been at school all day. And also some of those days they have really big events that can take a lot out of them, things like sporting events, swimming carnival. So it might be just really nice for them to just come and just talk about their day, ease into the engagement with you. They're probably starving hungry as well, so they might want to eat, and they might also want to talk to you about their day, something that happened, something that either bothered them or something that was exciting as well. So they really sometimes just want you to listen, and as they spend more time and enter into the space, then they might explore other things to play and pick it up again. But it really is different from day to day. I think once they've been at school all day and they come to your place, it's really can be just a place where we just need at least half an hour to an hour just to debrief and also just be. I apologize for my distraction there. I was reading a couple of the chats there. So somebody feels it's disconnected. You might want to just check your connection and see if it's going okay. I'll put in the chat for Ethan. He might be able to help you as well. So My Time, Our Place also tells us that play or playful behaviour stimulates neuroconnectivity in the brain, and playing contributes to feelings of social connection, well-being, and a sense of accomplishment. In play and leisure experiences, children and young people's sense of responsibility for their learning is co-determined. So there's a lot of connection and decision-making with children that happen, particularly in school age care. So this means how we engage with them, and also, young people, because they're up to age 12, will differ. And not just according to their unique personalities, but also being mindful of their stage in life and the social skills they have, because they can be quite diverse as well. Being really aware of children's natural way of doing things and their interests helps us as educators to plan our programs with children. And they might do this slightly differently with school-age children, depending upon their level of development, how old they are. So if they're 5 or 6 years old, might be different to, say, an 11-year-old in the way that they actually make decisions with you about their planning, about their program and what they would like to do. For most children, play and learning happens at the same time. And this is especially important for school-age children who are maturing and developing more complex levels of independence. They do like to be independent and have that sense of autonomy. And that's part of their identity and the need to do things for themselves as well. So this approach supports children to develop trust and connection with their educator, knowing that they can have some control, are heard, participate in the decision-making. And I think that's exactly what the title of the framework means: My Time, Our Place. So it's something that you work together and you decide together what they're going to be engaged in. Now, getting into the research of play, it has been researched for decades, as I mentioned before, particularly in regarding to neuroscience, and also trying to understand how it benefits children. And in fact, all species of all ages, play is really important for all of us. And there's growing evidence that teaching using physically active and playful approaches can enhance indicators of academic achievement. So by playing, we are also impacting our improved thinking and ability to have more success with our academic life. So Khalil explored some Palestinian teachers with this research here, and what they thought about play. And he found that the teachers could see the benefits for children, so this was in primary schools, and wanted to be able to incorporate this approach in schools. But what was stopping them was knowing how to actually play and having playful skills themselves. So as educators, knowing how to play and being playful and feeling comfortable to participate in play is actually a really important part of our role. And there are some concerns rising in Australia about some of the early education settings being a bit more like school and limiting play-based learning in their environments. And some researchers from Queensland University of Technology, Annette Woods and Michelle Jeffries, explored this idea in their research. And they looked at children's worlds and how children like to name and create their worlds through play. And what they found was that play gives children time and space to show how competent they are, and also how they can get along with others. They can demonstrate that through their play, and also solve problems together and learn to respect each other as well. And at the same time, this play helped them to increase their literacy skills. So the researchers found that children negotiated and dealt with conflict. They took up different opinions, different goals, and even different games in the way they enabled many to play together. So if you think of children creating their worlds, they come up with whatever world that is, and they've entered into it, and we can enter into it too. While they're in that world, they are solving problems, they are negotiating, they're learning to get along with each other, or learning to stand up for themselves as well through that play. And recent research has identified many benefits associated with play, and these include learning about life, the world, and others, learning how to manage emotions and regulating their behaviours better, learning to get along with others well, solve problems, understanding and following the social expectations, so things like turn taking, sharing, cleaning up after themselves, improving language and communication skills, including literacy and numeracy as well. And we also see an improvement in executive functioning, which is the ability to manage daily tasks. It's kind of the planning part of your brain, and being able to cope with the unexpected. So it has some connections to the way you feel emotionally. So sometimes when children are emotional, when we're emotional, we might struggle to make some good decisions, or a decision at all sometimes. So that's where, our executive functioning kicks in as well. So improving mental health and ability to cope with reasonable stress, that is one of the really key things that play supports as well. And improving physical health and well-being, so things like our gross and fine motor skills, and just general overall health and happiness. I mean, playing is meant to be fun and, make us happy and make children happy. So this is really powerful for the young child, but it's not only beneficial for young children, it's beneficial for us too. I think we sometimes become more happier when we play games. It improves our overall health with some form of play or playfulness in our lives. And when we're playful, we find it easier to engage in play with children as well. So we need to practice our own play skills, imagine what we will do. And this research, it's recent, it aligns with everything we've already known about play. So it's not really something new. I think it's just really become more prominent how important play is. Over time, though, daily routines and administrative tasks can sometimes feel like they're more important than play. But it is important to keep reminding ourselves how play helps children to grow and to flourish. And so we need to make sure that there are always lots of opportunities for children to play. So this is a really interesting diagram I found that was designed by Ellen McKenzie. So she's a writer, researcher, peer reviewer, and she's an early childhood educator as well. Based on her research, she's provided a simplified version of understanding the benefits of play that relate to children's holistic learning and development. And we can also link this back both to the EYLF and the MTOP. And as you can see, there are commonalities across the research regarding these benefits. So if we look at children's emotional development, they develop resilience, joy, empathy, self-regulation, impulse control. Their social development, they learn to share, take turns, cooperate, collaborate with others. They also develop independent critical, mathematical and scientific thinking as well. So that's leading into that academic stage. And children, they develop fine motor and gross motor skills, as well as being, learning about nutrition, wellness, and coordination. So that's their physical skills. They also become creative, solution-based, and which can lead to being solution-focused as a person as you're growing, and they become problem solvers. Regarding their linguistic development, play supports children to develop their literacy, language, and verbal skills as well. We go back to the story about my niece. She was 4 months old and already developing her linguistic skills through that back and forth conversation that we were having as well. So in the chat, provide some examples of how you engage in play. What are some of the things that you do with children? Are you playful? What sort of playful things do you do? Chasing, pretend play. Yep, imaginary play. Yep, pretend play, open-ended conversations, hide and seek, dress-ups, puzzles, running races. Children love running races. They really do. Joining in on their activities, role-playing, kitchen play, dancing, dramatic play, enacting books, stories, cosmic yoga, making jokes, water play. Lovely, lovely. Thank you. Well, we now have a fabulous family daycare educator I've interviewed her the other night. It was a fantastic conversation. She's going to share with us how she supports play in her service. Thank you so much for participating in today's interview. We look forward to hearing about what you have to say all about play and how you incorporate play in your setting. So, as a family daycare educator, what are your thoughts on learning through play?
As we know, play is vital. It's everything for young children. It's the basis of how they learn and interact with their world. For me, I guess I look at play as just the way that we interact with children. It's the way they learn. They're natural born scientists. They're hardwired to explore and experiment and experience their world around them, and we're really just here to facilitate that as educators. And for young children, play is the most effective and enjoyable way that they process new information and experiences, and learn about everything around them. So it's really the basis of what we do. We're just facilitators of play, as we should be.
So all the learning that takes place through that play, do you combine sort of planned as well as spontaneous experiences for children?
Yes, so we have our planning cycle, and I sit down at the end of every day and plan for the next day and plan for the next week. But sometimes, like today, the children have completely different plans for our day. So I like to plan, and I'm a real planner. I have a planning board each month that I like to fill out weeks in advance, but some of those things just get crossed off the list as it evolves every day and their interests change and they move in different tangents, or there's an experience that's more of a priority for them to explore that's happened through the month. So yeah, it's quite a combination of intentional teaching and planned experiences, but it's all adaptable to the day and the weather and moods and what people want to do. So yeah, it's all about daily flexibility.
Yep, that's it, because you never know also what type of sleep they've had the night before, how energized they feel.
That's right. And we're on the in the Hunter Valley, so we've just had a very large flood. So we had a week of all extensions of learning didn't really happen because we've had people away, and then the children that were here wanted to explore that. So
Yeah,
it's environmental as well. It just
yeah,
depends on what's happening as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, fair enough. So that was a great way to incorporate that spontaneous learning. What sort of other play experiences do you have available for children in your home?
So in my indoor, I have two main play spaces, one inside, and I have a large granny flat, which is an indoor outdoor play space.
Yep.
So I have a mix of experiences every day. I have areas that are permanent areas that are always set up, like the home corner is a permanent area, and our mindfulness corner, our soft space, that's a permanent fix. So children know they have that soft space and safe space to go to when they want throughout the day. But I also have open shelving in both play spaces so children can make choices about what they would like to play with. And what's available on those shelves depends on what the children are interested in at the time. It's fluid and they change. I like to use bowls, so all of my open shelving has bowls. So there's mixes of small world play. I like lots of natural fibers. I'm a real nature whiz, I guess. I like to live
Hmm.
outside and I'm a
Yep.
beekeeper as well. So our play spaces have a lot of natural fibers and resources in them as loose parts. Um, so lots of things there, lots of art resources.
Yeah.
I really like artistic expression for little people. So I have a large art space in my outdoor play space, and that's accessible for children of all ages. So it's self-serve. Children can make choices about when they want to create and what they want to create, from pumping their own paints, watercolors, charcoal, beeswax, terracotta clay, collage materials. They're a permanent fix, I guess, in my play space. So there's quite a mix of materials up there. Down here in my indoor play space, this is a yoga space as well for the children. So I try to keep this space down here a little bit more minimalist, but
Mm.
still open shelving, lots of grappets and grims and open-ended resources that children can choose from. But I try to keep the play down here a little bit more slower play because it's attached
Mm.
to our rest area as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so quite a mix of different resources in both spaces. And our outdoor space has lots of garden and veggie spaces. So, and the beehives that the children can observe during the day.
That's just fascinated me. How do you go about that? How do you support them to learn about the beehives?
So we have a glass safety fence that runs up the middle of my daycare area. So
Yeah.
the bees are about 3.5 meters away from that glass fence. So the children can't access our honey beehives unsupervised, but they are able to observe them all day. And our bees here have actually been selectively bred to be quiet and calm. We have someone here that breeds them for school and preschool programs. So
Oh,
yeah, so the children are able to actually observe the honeybees. I harvest honey, and the children process honey with me. I will often bring frames in that have live larvae and brood in them. So all the children here are quite knowledgeable around bees and the life cycle of bees, and they've seen swarms. So when we practice our lockdown drills, bee swarms are something that we have to practice
yeah.
for, and we actively manage so that that doesn't happen. But
Yeah.
bees make up their mind to do
They
things
do.
sometimes.
They do.
So we
I,
have had a bee swarm while daycare was going, and we've had called someone and suits on and children inside, and they got to watch it be captured. And yeah, we have many beehives now.
that's amazing. So I was just going back a little bit. I'm not sure if I heard you right. Did you say the bees have been trained?
They've been selectively bred. So
Right.
they can selectively breed queen bees because your queen bee sets the temperament for your entire hive. So you can actually selectively breed for temperament in bees. So my bees here, you can actually just walk around the beehives without a suit on. They're very, very quiet. Obviously, we don't do that with small children.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we do, yeah, the children have been involved in building the hives, in painting the hives. What else do? They build the brood frames. They help me harvest the honey. They help me harvest the wax. They take honey home. We cook with honey. So it's just been an incredible learning resource in our
Yeah.
space. And we're getting stingless bees in spring this year, which will be in our main play area because they're not a hazard to anybody.
Mhm.
But it's been great because in the Hunter Valley, we had the varroa mites started here, and we had a 2 year period where all the bees were actually killed in the Hunter Valley. They were baited and killed to try to stop the varroa mite spreading. So we needed to help our local community re-establish our bee population here for the farmers because we're in Morpeth, we're in a farming area.
Yeah.
So that's what prompted us to get the bees last year. But it really escalated. Now, two of our daycare families have a hive as well. It's kind of,
Wow. So you're
yeah,
spreading the love. You're
it,
spreading the,
yeah,
but
the
what a
buzz has
great
continued.
way of engaging in sustainability as a community as well.
Oh, 100%. And also just the learning it has provoked in other areas. So now we have a queen ant because, it's kind of prompted more questions around nature and life cycles in other areas than I thought it would. I
Mm.
didn't realize how that learning would be transferred to other areas. So, one of the questions was, Dean, do ants have a queen like a bee? And it kind of flowed from there. So now we have this queen ant, which I didn't realize at the time lived for 15 years. So that's a big commitment.
That is a big
Then the bees,
commitment.
but we've got a queen ant. And yeah, so it's been incredible. It's really, I knew that the children would really enjoy this experience, but it's been so much more enriching than I thought it would. And also how much the parents have had an input, the
Mm.
questions from parents. We had an open bee day here on a Saturday when the bees actually were delivered because we spent a couple of months building the hives, painting the hives, doing the garden prep, the planting the flowers, and we had about 30 people here that day when the bees
Wow.
arrived. Like the community interest in bees. Once they realize they don't need to be afraid,
Mm.
they were just fascinated. They've all fallen down the rabbit hole now. But another educator locally has a hive now too, so it's kind of spread the love that way as well.
Wow. That
Yeah, so
that it is actually quite fascinating. And bees are such an important part of the earth and, producing fruit and vegetables and, replenishing the earth with natural products as well and nature. So
yeah,
so important.
yeah, it's fascinating. We're actually experiencing a poison event here at the moment, which has been really tragic. We don't know where the poison's coming from, but it's killing one of our hives.
Oh
So
no.
that has really led to a lot of questions and learning with the preschool age children because
Yeah.
they're asking some really hard questions about
Yeah.
pesticides. Where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Why is this happening? Did you call the farmer? Did you tell them that their poison has affected the bee? Like that
Wow.
empathy and concern is just, yeah. So we've had the DPI come out and inspect the hives. We got to watch that happen, take samples. They're testing them for poison. So it's, yeah. Anyway, I'll talk bees all day long if you let me.
I could probably listen all day, but I
Yeah.
think there'll be a lot of cutting back because I think we're at 20 minutes already, and I've still got a
Yeah.
bunch of other
Sorry.
questions to ask. But no, it's totally fine. It's totally
Yeah.
fine. I think actually, having to me, listening to you talk about that, it demonstrates your vested interest in being able to teach children, not just through imaginary play, but through exploration of ideas. And, you're all on a journey together. So I can kind of see that you're not just there guiding them, you're immersing yourself in their way of thinking as well.
Yeah, 100%. And when you provide them with those practical examples,
Mm.
like looking inside a beehive, you can teach them with resources about the life cycle of bees, but if you hand them a frame of brood and involve them in that process, their knowledge retention is just incredible. I was originally a financial advisor and I did family daycare to stay at home for 12 months with my eldest daughter, who's now 13,
Yeah.
almost 14. So, yeah, I fell well and truly down the rabbit hole. I had no idea you could have fun at work. It was,
Oh, oh, well, see,
it's,
that's the thing, isn't it?
yeah,
It is about fun. Play is about having fun
yeah,
and
yeah.
being curious and connecting with each other.
100%. Yeah, it's the most joyful part. Yeah, it's joyful. It's pure and joyful. It's really wonderful. Yeah.
So when you're, I suppose, immersed in play and all of the learning, how do you, um, keep up the supervision and the risk assessments and all of those sorts of things? Because it's a tricky balance to be fully immersed in play and with exploration, and then being able to supervise well at the same time.
Yeah. So actively supervising, making sure, particularly in an indoor outdoor space that's quite a large area, it's about, for me, well, moving between the two spaces. But if I am engaged in an activity, just making sure that I position myself so that I
Mm,
can observe. Knowing your children and their natural rhythms, I find helps too, because you can generally predict where children are going to be and what they're going to be interested in. Um, Throughout the day. You can, if you know your children really well, you also know the risks. If
yeah,
someone is a climber, they need to be more actively supervised
yeah,
than the children who are going to be close to you, drawing, being with you all day. And I set up my play space so there's no real visual blockers if I am um, inside or outside. Anchoring myself with play. So if I'm outside playing with them, or for example, when we're at the park, which is a large open public space, I find if I'm playing with the children, they stay with me anyway.
mm,
So being available, being in one spot, being actively engaged with them, they all organically want to be with you. So you don't tend to have children wandering off. So
mm,
if I'm playing games at the park, they stay with me anyway. And the same in my own backyard as well. If I'm sitting and engaged in play and being present, they tend to be around me anyway, around that natural circle of security, I guess.
yeah. And that really shows that you have a strong relationship with the children and that they trust you and that you genuinely want to be with them, which makes them feel valued and a sense of belonging as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Mm. So, do you have any children who are school age?
I have my own two children here who are school age,
Yeah,
and I have one who's currently school age, who's still here this year,
yeah,
who has some special needs, who we've held back a little bit longer.
yeah,
And that's it. I used to do vacation care. I don't anymore.
yeah. And so when it comes to then incorporating, like you've talked a lot about how you build children's interests and ideas into your planning and, being spontaneous and changing directions. Do you find that's a bit different for older children? Like, do you do different things with older children?
Yes, older children are obviously more verbal and can communicate more clearly. So I do have planning sessions with them each week.
Yeah.
So I literally ask them, what would you like to do? Would you like to continue to look at the ants next week when you come back tomorrow? What would you like to do? I was thinking about doing this. Do you have any other ideas? So I really try to get the sort of 3 and 4 and 5 year olds to have input verbally into the program and tell me what they want to do. Because sometimes that is completely different to where I thought they wanted to go.
Mm,
They can really lead me in different directions. Yeah, with those planning sessions.
wow. And so do they tend to also engage with the younger children as well when they're there?
Yes, very much. So it's really lovely in family daycare because it's like mentoring, I guess.
Mm,
Those mixed ages are really wonderful.
mm,
My own children have grown up in family daycare and they still come home from school in the afternoon and play with the younger children. Um, and the younger children are so eager to play with them, to have those role models and mentors in their life. It's really lovely, those mixed ages.
and so much learning that can happen just with not just about concepts, but actually about those social interactions as well. And I find that young children tend to listen a bit more to the older children sometimes.
Oh, 100%. We had a couple of children who were having some um, less than positive interactions a few weeks ago, and I was doing lots of programming around it, lots of stories, lots of group times, lots of group discussions. And my youngest daughter came home from school one day and observed what was happening in the yard and said to one of the children, I really like the way you're playing together like that. And perhaps, you could try this next time. And it literally stopped the behavior in a moment.
Wow.
The power of peers is incredible. I had spent a month's worth of programming for these two, and she sorted it out
And that's all
in a
you needed to
moment.
do.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
it
bring her
was
in.
fantastic. Yeah, so it was lovely to see just
Wow.
how much
Yeah.
power and influence positive older peers can really have on younger children.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's really important for us to have a really strong connection with the older children as well and be able to support them in their own social emotional growth as well to
Yes.
keep that
Yeah.
up.
Definitely.
So I've got a couple of more questions. So tell me about your engagement with families. How do you explain play-based learning to families, or do they ask you questions about it? What sort of discussions do you have?
Um, some families ask questions, some families don't. It generally comes up in questions when there's a challenging behavior. That seems to
Okay.
be where a lot of questions come from. I try to explain play-based learning around the why, if I
Mhm.
can. If I have the knowledge and I'm confident to share it, I will try to explain things in terms of why a child might be exploring a particular urge or interest or action or motion. Yeah, in terms of the why and what benefit they are getting out of it.
Mm,
Like for instance, something simple like peekaboo seems like such a simple thing, but
mm,
trying to explain to a parent that that game is cause and effect and object
mm,
permanence, and this is helping with separation anxiety, and their brain has this urge to do this because they're trying to concrete this learning, and play is how they're going to learn it. Um, Sometimes I'll share resources if I'm aware of something that is going to add value,
yeah.
particularly around something like a schema, just to explain why, something simple we're doing in care is really effective for a particular interest or milestone that we're trying to work towards.
Mhm.
So, yeah, trying to explain the why if I can,
Yeah,
I think probably displays the benefit more than anything.
it does. And sometimes parents actually need to see that in action. Families need to
Yes.
be able to see if this is what you've been teaching them, but you've done it through play. And now
Yeah.
this child is able to explain or demonstrate, but it was done through play. It wasn't done through, you know, formal formal learning that is doesn't give the child agency. It's restrictive, it's open.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So do you have any tips for other family daycare educators in regards to play and how they can immerse themselves in play with children?
Um, just, I think the most important thing in terms of play for educators is my top tip would probably be just play with them,
Mm,
be with them, be involved. Um, Play doesn't need to be elaborate or Instagrammable creations and elaborate setups and
mm,
expensive resources. It is children really just enjoy simple things and simple pleasures. Crunching leaves, playing peekaboo, watching a caterpillar, observing a bee in the garden, like just just be with them. We're really special people in these children's lives, and we are the most adaptable resource in this play space for them.
mm,
So just being with them and giving them the time, and we don't have to rush them anywhere. We can just give them time and space, and just hold space for them to play. Just
Wow,
let
what a
them lead.
beautiful, sorry, say that again.
No, that's okay. Just let them lead. Let them
Mm,
lead. Let them make choices, and just conversation sometimes is the most wonderful play. Um, Walking to the park conversations are one of my favorite ways to play with the children, because I find they just talk and tell me all these wonderful things in those parallel moments of walking together. Really spontaneous conversations, but you just have to be there and be present. Yeah, I think is the most wonderful way to incorporate play. Yeah, it's
mm.
just being there. Mm.
Well, I think the children that are with you are experiencing a beautiful life and enjoyment in your setting. And I can see that you're so incredibly dedicated and committed to what you do, and always thinking about the children that you're with. Like you were saying earlier, it's really knowing the children, really knowing them. And they love to be known as well. They want to be known.
100%. They live in such a
Mm,
fast-paced world.
yeah.
We get to be so privileged in that we get to hold their hand for a little while and just give them somewhere to not have to rush with no tech, and
Mm,
just get to be with them for a little while. So it's yeah, it's really wonderful to be a play facilitator.
mm, brilliant. Thank you so much for that. That was incredible. Wasn't that amazing? I I found that conversation just so incredible. Um, Holding space for play, holding space for children, so important. And it also teaches children to hold space for others as well, if they experience it from us, which talks about this next part, what we're going to look at, which is about being present and intentional in play. Um, this is really a crucial aspect, being present, because sometimes we get caught up in other things that are happening. We get worried about documentation, all of the things that can sometimes take us away from play and being present. So being present in our work is really key. And it doesn't mean we have to interact every single moment, but showing children we're available to them is so important, including being emotionally available. So being available tells children that we care about them and we genuinely want to be with them. Just like Nadine was talking about, she wants to be with children, and you can see she's been doing it for 10 years. And this type of respectful relationship supports children to grow in their social skills. It helps them to feel comfortable to tell us, the things that they like, or even what's wrong, what's making them sad, what's making them scared or happy. Understanding boundaries and also ideas around consent. It gives space for that. Being present also means we're mindful of the different ways that children learn and their abilities, their cultures and values as well. And we understand the unique ways they like to interact with others. So that it's being attuned to children. And some children like to play with others all of the time, whilst others just like to spend time playing alone. And being playful can also teach children about humour, even though at the start, not all children know how to tell a good joke and everything's funny. You just have to go along with it, and that's okay. But it brings enjoyment between everyone. And children want to be able to share their joys and things that they find funny. So being present means that we're not just physically there in the same space as children, but we're mindfully and emotionally there. We're receptive, responsive, proactive, engaging, warm, approachable. We build trust. And of course, all of that together builds a sense of belonging for children when they're with us. So the EYLF states that educators who prioritise nurturing relationships through culturally safe and responsive interactions provide children with consistent emotional support. And that's what being present with children does. It makes our engagement meaningful, and it makes children feel, a sense of belonging. So different ways we can be present with children include listening to their ideas. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Sometimes they can take a very long time. Patience is something we all need to have, and often really do have. Asking open-ended questions to help them share these ideas and work out how to solve the problems as well. Showing we're listening by repeating what they have said, and also asking for clarity, just in case we've missed something that they've said. Showing enjoyment and happiness when we see them, or when we greet them when they arrive, or when they come back into the room, interacting with them. Showing intrigue into their games and their artwork and imaginary play ideas that demonstrate to them we're genuinely interested in them. I think that's something children deserve. We're genuinely interested in spending time with you and learning about who you are. And responding with care and concern when a child is distressed. So not really, forcing them to think they're okay, but to actually allow them to experience the emotion and share it with you and work through it together. So thinking about intentionality, the EYLF reminds us that both children and educators are intentional when we engage in play-based learning. So it says that play-based learning with intentionality can expand children's thinking and enhance their desire to know and to learn, promoting positive dispositions towards learning. So this means that when we're intentional in play, we're encouraging children to get excited about play, get excited about their learning, using their knowledge, their skills, extending their play, thinking about new ideas. And our role is to always be mindful of what knowledge and skills we are supporting them develop. What do they know now? And what can we help to extend them to know that is new? How can we learn from them as well? So when I was teaching, a couple of places that I was teaching, children love pet shops, or they love building pet shops, or they love playing this imaginary play with pet shops. And so this one particular group decided that they didn't just want to play the imaginary play pet shop, they wanted to build a pet shop, but on a board, like with small little figurines. And this took so much planning. It went on for weeks and weeks and weeks. So they'd had to decide together what pets they were going to be in the pet shop, and also what they needed to be cared for. Who was going to care for them? What sort of comforts did they need while they were in the pet shop? How will customers know to come in and learn about the pets? It was all sorts of really interesting things that they were having discussions over. And then it came down to the design of the pet shop. So they mapped it out first, and then we had these amazing little pieces of recycled wood that looked like floorboards when we placed it down on cardboard. So they had this beautiful floorboards on this cardboard pet shop with, and they created little enclosures, and it enabled us to talk a lot about what is, in regards to animals' rights regarding enclosures. Will animals be happy in a cage? Are they happy in a cage? What will they need while they're waiting for somebody to come and buy them? So lots of questions that sort of came up about that. Now, sometimes children like to explore these ideas and materials by themselves, and that's important for them. So they've got time to develop their thinking. So it's really important, like Nadine was saying, hold space for children. Hold space for children to also think and have time to think. And also it gives them a chance to think about the questions they want to ask as well. We also need to remember that children's learning can sometimes be limited by their own individual exploration alone, without a knowledgeable other to help them find answers to their questions and introduce new ideas to them as well. So they might come up with different theories about things, but we also have to think about, okay, how do we support the child to explore those theories and develop factual knowledge about things at the same time? So children make their own interpretations of what they see based upon their prior knowledge and possibly without deeper understanding or knowledge building. So it's important for us to think about what they know and can do and how we can extend this. So, for example, children might watch you plant a seedling, but they may not know why a plant needs dirt, water, and sun unless you tell them or help them find the answers. So when things like that come up, it's really great to be able to support children to become resourceful to find these answers out, rather than just thinking, oh, plants just go in the ground. And play is the same. So we can teach so much through play and support children to learn about play, about objects, learn about the world, learn about each other, by simply just entering into play with them. And when we enter into play, we're sometimes the leader, sometimes the follower, sometimes there is no leader. And this approach teaches children that leadership can be shared, ideas can be realised, voices can be heard, regardless of your role or position. So just because you're a leader doesn't mean you tell everybody what to do. The learning about democracy and social justice concepts comes to life when you play like that. And it's through those rich conversations and questions that you have. And that's where our role is intentional. We choose to lead or follow based upon what's happening in the play and between the players as well. So when we think about play and the way we join in is actually quite critical. And how we do this with young children might be different to older children. So we need to balance our time between suggesting ideas and listening to ideas. And Blythe, who's a researcher, he talks about how beneficial it is for educators to be part of the play as well, and strengthening of relationships and connections between children and educators is quite a profound thing. So children see that we're genuinely interested in what they have to say, what they want to do and how they want to play, and the roles that are available and how they negotiate them. So Blythe says that when teachers join in, it has been found to increase the duration and complexity of play as well. But it's important not to take over the play. So he warns us not to get carried away and, be the always the leader in play, always the one making the decisions. So it's a delicate balance between sharing the lead and the control. And if children have far less control over what happens in play, they learn to become dependent upon the ideas of others for play rather than coming up with ideas themselves, or at least feeling enough freedom to be able to do it, to be able to come up with ideas and confidence to share those ideas. So teachers need to remain cautious that they don't take over play, because children interpret a situation as play only if they feel like they have some control over it. So that's a really important aspect of play as well. It's really important to think about how patient and graceful we interact with children. So children might take a long time to fully express their ideas, and it can be challenging not to interrupt. Allowing them time and space to communicate builds trust as well. The child will learn to trust you. Yeah, you're going to listen to me, even if it's taking me so long and it's very complicated in my mind what I have to say. So with time and sensitive guidance, children do improve in being able to express their ideas more effectively and a bit more succinctly. Sometimes people never learn that, but that's okay. However, at the start, they might need to express really detailed versions and everything in between. And as time goes on, they learn to organise their thoughts a bit better and develop skills in sequencing, telling stories and sharing ideas as well. So that comes with time and practice. Whoops. I think I accidentally skipped a slide. There we go. So let's have a think about, just make sure I haven't, yep. Let's have a think about what imaginary play does for children. Okay, so before, when in the chat, a lot of you were saying you play things like hide and seek, chasing, those sorts of things. It's still part of that imaginary play. And a lot of you talk about kitchen play or role play. You might have dress ups, those sorts of things. So imaginary play enables children to explore roles, different storylines. They can change the storylines. They can become characters. They can develop their own plots and ideas around storytelling. From very young, children engage in imaginary play, and they often pretend to do, real world things like playing with tea sets, handing you a cup of tea, playing with cars, using figurines, or there might be specific items that relate to our particular cultures that they will use. An imaginary play enables children to learn about the world and can include lots of ideas about science, maths, literacy, technology, and social elements such as emotions. You can teach about social justice, as I mentioned before, and concepts of fairness and equity. So I'm not sure if you've all heard of Marilyn Fleer, but Fleer's conceptual play worlds demonstrate this through research. And Marilyn Fleer's done a lot of research with children birth to age 12. So emeritus professor, she's now professor, Marilyn Fleer has strongly advocated for play in early childhood and play for a very, very long time. In fact, I remember when I was teaching years and years ago, I was reading her work on play and implementing some of those strategies. But her conceptual play world research has shown that through imaginary play, children gain stronger grasp on concepts, and they keep building their knowledge in both factual and abstract thinking. And I was reading up an article that she'd written about her study with infants and toddlers, and she explored with her team how children under the age of 3 could begin to think scientifically through imaginary play. So this study found that imaginary play allowed young children to learn really detailed knowledge about animal characteristics, their habitats, and what they ate, because that was the story that the children would enter into. It was to do with particular animals in the jungle, so they would enter into play in the jungle, and it was through that they explored these really specific details. And these are, children under the age of 3. So the repetition of the story narrative and the role playing gave possibilities for infant toddlers to imitate with understanding the movements and sounds of the animals, and at the same time as being brought closer to the concept of an ecosystem as they moved through the different habitats in the imagined jungle with the adventure of looking for the snake. So that was part of the story, is to look for the snake. And through that, they will come across other animals that were in the jungle. So engagement in imaginary play within this particular study involved animals, and children developed their curiosity, their interest, enjoyment, and discovery, which in turn helped build their memory skills and ability to process and use information. So they were able to understand and repeat various aspects of the whole jungle's ecosystem as well. So that's quite amazing for very young children to be able to explain that. So once again, play becomes powerful in building knowledge through enjoyable and memorable experiences. And this is something that, imaginary play can do. We can think about, the scientific concepts or maths or, by entering into the story, the imaginary world, but we're still learning about real world things as well. So you can learn more about Fleer's conceptual play worlds here. There's the website, and the links will be provided also in the booklet when you receive that. And if you go onto the Play School website on ABC TV, they have some really great examples as well. So they will have a person, often a celebrity, reading a story, and then they'll go into detail of all of the other things that you could do to enter into a play world. So there's quite a few examples there if you would like to have a look. Okay, look at this squelchy mud. Not everybody loves mud, but I think that there's nothing better on a warm summer's day than walking barefoot in mud. I think there's just something about it that feels therapeutic. But anyway, children love to play in mud play, and I've had lots of lots of experiences with children where they've turned an area into a mud area, and a group of maybe 8 or 9 children will be, and this is in a kindergarten setting, will be immersed in cooking up a feast for their customers or whoever it is that they're cooking for. So some of the other examples for imaginary play can include setting up a shop with cash registers, setting up a restaurant with menus, tablecloths, flowers in vases, cutlery, etc. An outdoor mud kitchen, which is this photograph here, with old pots and pans and utensils. And sometimes people have used recycled furniture as well to be the pretend stove, oven, or cupboards. So obviously, you need to be safety checked and everything as well. Doll houses of various sizes are great. You can get some really big ones or some small ones. Sometimes you don't need really big elaborate things. You just, some children really love small play sometimes. So just figurines, and also making sure that when you're looking at those figurines and providing resources, that you're also incorporating variability in ages, gender, and cultures as well. Some other areas are sandpit with trucks and other vehicles, as well as equipment to create the roads. Workstations that can be transformed into things like a mechanic garage, a building site, or a headquarters for police. I used to have children loving to make headquarters, and sometimes that they would send their people out to go and rescue others and then come back to headquarters to make a next plan. You might want to make a puppet theatre. You don't have to buy a brand new elaborate puppet theatre. It can just be made with chairs and some fabric, and handmade puppets as well. And also just having fabric for children to explore and create costumes is great, because they can then come up with their own ideas as to the character they're going to be in those costumes. Games are also terrific. Games are a great way to support children to develop social skills, and to also hold each other a little bit of accountable, no cheating, all those sorts of things, and a little bit of negotiation that happens there as well. It also increases their problem solving and them thinking strategically, depending on what games you've got, and also what ages, obviously. It increases their literacy, numeracy, and also knowledge of the world. It helps them with their perseverance, and also some self-regulation in regards to winning and losing, which I think is a really important skill for children to develop. But not everybody can be a winner, and that sometimes we admire the person who has completed something or won, and we might win next time, but it's not the end of the world if we lose. But graciousness is really important to be able to, I suppose, admire the skills in others who have won something, for example. When all of those social interactions, communication and connections, come in play there. So even things like a simple game of Uno requires children to engage in things like matching, counting, reading, and strategy as well. So they have to decide which cards to keep, which ones to throw out. Another game, Snakes and Ladders, helps children with number recognition and definitely perseverance. I have to have a lot of perseverance with Snakes and Ladders because I keep going down the snake. And they also foster connection as children relate their experiences to the game. So we had a mouse game. It was like a mouse chasing game, and you roll a die. And that game led to discussions about mice, what they knew about mice, favourite movies where characters were mice or pets, Some children have mice as pets as well. So, those sorts of things can lead to all sorts of conversations that they can have. Creative arts is another amazing way to explore play. It provides them opportunities to work with a range of materials and concepts, movements that they need to build, skills in using equipment, and how they're able to express themselves in lots of different ways. So we look at physical skills. So there's fine and gross motor skills developed through creative arts, such as cutting, drawing, connecting, molding, stretching, dancing, twirling, jumping to music, swaying, balancing, all those sorts of things that they do, and also engaging in various cultural dance practices as well. So when we're looking at creative arts, it's not just visual arts, it's dance, it's music, it's drama, it's all of those different types of arts as well, and media arts. Language and communication skills are also strengthened, and that builds their vocabulary to include things like action words, naming words for people, objects and places, and descriptive words. They also start to use longer sentences and phrases to really build their ability to have conversations with others, and particularly for extended periods of time as well. They've also developed thinking skills, and creative arts and play through creative arts really, really does support lots of different types of thinking skills, from creative thinking to problem solving to memory to the application of memory as well. From learning how to mold clay and understanding how to use, slurry to keep it sticking together, to learning how to play a beat on a drum in time to a beat, those sorts of things. You have to use all of your thinking skills when you're engaging with that. So it provides great opportunity for learning about science as well. So things like mixing red and blue to make purple, adding warmth to oobleck that changes it from a solid to a liquid. I don't know if any of you have made oobleck before, but it's just corn flour and water. And when you pick it up, it's solid. When you pick it up, it just melts down your hand. With social emotional learning, creative arts can support children to recognise that beauty actually varies for every person, and that beauty isn't defined by this person or that person, it changes. They think about the visual arts, they think about dance, music and drama, and they think what is beautiful to them and what they enjoy. And they learn to appreciate this in others and the different way others see beauty, and that it's okay to have different opinions. And creative arts support children to make things together, share in the art making process, and also build confidence, see themselves as capable art makers or artists, whether this is through visual arts, drama, or music, or even dance. When I was teaching 3-year-olds, every day when they came in, they wanted to dance. That was it. I had to put, I had this lovely album of very well-known classical music, and that's what I had to play. And they would just dance, and they would dance together. And the way they danced was really quite interesting, how they would change their movements to the music. So you could see that they were really engaged with how the music was making them feel and making them move as well. So visual arts also offers children the chance to gain insights into sustainability. So they begin to question the use of certain materials. And there might be certain materials that you don't use, and you might use more recycled or repurposed materials for artistic reasons, which is really important. It just gives that opportunity for children to learn not to be wasteful as well. Okay. And there's some examples of creative arts. So some of you might have already used this. So things like clay, or you might combine clay with wire, threading, sewing, knitting, crocheting, ensuring safety precautions, of course, making musical instruments or playing a range of musical instruments, and exploring different types of dance and music and drama as well. So now we're going to have a little bit of a look at the safety considerations in risky play. So Nadine talked about some of the things that she did when she was considering safety for children, including things like positioning and how she would protect children. So we're going to have a little bit of a look at that as well. Okay. So engaging in play and supervising effectively at the same time is definitely a balancing act. The more we do this, though, the better we become at doing it. And also being in tune with children and, you know, their likeliness to play particular ways, we become better at that as well. And so we become more aware of all the things that need to be considered for effective supervision when we're caring for children, caring and educating children. So the national legislation states that a family daycare educator must ensure that any child being educated and cared for by the educator as a part of a family daycare service is adequately supervised. It's a mouthful there, but I think we're all very aware of this particular law. So understanding what adequate supervision includes a number of things. And the first thing is knowing children's playful nature and curiosities. So understanding how they play, their abilities, their challenges. It's all really crucial for creating that positive learning experience, keeping them safe and teaching children to keep themselves safe. So play allows children to explore ideas and experiment, like playing with this paper boat in the puddles, learning about water depth and the scientific concepts, but safety is essential. So play must be supervised, and we need to know all about water safety play, even in puddles. We don't know how deep those puddles are sometimes. Engaging with play also means actively supervising them, ensuring their safety while they learn and grow. Actively listening. It also involves listening and having a keen ear on what's going on in front of you and behind you when you're engaging with play, and positioning yourself. So making sure that you're moving, turning around, positioning, repositioning, maximising involvement in play and supervision all at the same time. Like I said, it is a balancing act, but it is possible. And, you know, it's about an awareness that you build of where everybody is all at the same time. Okay. So thinking about safety is really important, not just in our backyards, but also if we take children to playgrounds. So playgrounds provide a great opportunity for children to engage in active play, where they can develop gross motor skills, engage in imaginary play, because sometimes they might have equipment that we don't have in our backyards. And children love to swing, slide, climb, have lots and lots of fun. And they build their confidence and competence in using different types of equipment as well. We also need to really make sure that we have checked the equipment before we actually go to the playground for a start. So the national legislation states a family daycare educator must ensure that every reasonable precaution is taken to protect a child being educated and cared for as part of a family daycare service from harm and from any hazard likely to cause injury. So really important to think about, you know, what are the checks that we do before we go to the playgrounds, or, you know, what are the checks that we do in our backyard as well before children go out to play. So things like safety checks and risk assessments, which I'm all sure you are very familiar with, need to be regular. And also pay particular attention to safety features of equipment, because there are some older parks that the equipment might need a bit of an upgrade. So it's really important to be aware of it, and to also teach children to look out for safety hazards in parks as well. So they can start to make, as they grow older, make decisions for themselves on equipment that's safe or not safe. And we also need to think about how do we support children with limited ability to also experience the joy of visiting playgrounds too. So playing in the outdoors, I noticed before in some of the chat, a lot of you like to play outdoors and in nature, which is wonderful for children to be able to experience that. And I think that sometimes children don't get enough of being outdoors and just really, really being amongst nature. It provides them really an opportunity to sort of think about where they are, what are the trees around them, what are the plants around them. So you might take them, to a bush or a forest, or you might also go down to the beach. And so thinking about different safety considerations are really important to make sure they can play freely while also keeping them safe. And outdoor play is a really great chance to teach children about safety and their decision making. So we think about safety, we can actually teach them through imaginary play even before we start planning for excursions or going down to the beach or the park. We can recreate a forest in our own setting or imaginary forest, and what sort of things might we find there if we go there? What sort of things might be unsafe? You could use storybooks to teach this kind of knowledge as well, to help children sort of really understand the safety aspects of going outside and outside the property. And it can include things like learning about traffic safety, the different types of landscapes, how to manage them. So walking, on gravel or gravel on slopes, identifying anything slippery and slippery surfaces. Being safe around water as well, or any dangerous animals we might come across. So things like if you're in an area that has snakes or venomous spiders, it's really important to teach children about how to be safe if they see anything like that. Personal safety as well, so wearing a hat, applying sunscreen, drinking water, wearing appropriate shoes and clothing as well. Okay. So some of the things that when we are playing outside, even inside, but when we are playing outside in a different landscapes, we have to think about the children that we're with and some of the questions we might ask ourselves. Are children likely to put things in their mouths when we go? Will they put leaves, sticks in their mouths? Do they know how to manage natural sticks with potential sharp ends and splinters and use them safely so they're not like waving them around? Do they know how to climb over rocks and logs and stones and things like that as well? Are they aware of water safety if they come across a deep puddle? Do they know how to go up to it first and be cautious? So whilst we don't want to limit their imagination playing in the outdoor, really equip them with knowledge they need to engage in that play and keep themselves safe as well. Now, this is really interesting. I don't know if you've seen any very young children spending a lot of time on mobile phones or iPads, and this is something we also need to think about when digital technology can get in the way. So children frequently engage in digital play, starting as infants and toddlers, and lots of families now give access to phones and other devices to their children. So it's important to understand how children value this type of play and how to keep them safe in the digital world. So access to internet is widely available these days. You can pretty much get it anywhere. But play on the devices need to have settings that restrict certain sites and images that will be inappropriate for children. It's also important to think about if you've got school-age children with you and they have their own phones, they might not have these restrictions applied to their phones. So supervision or processes and policies around devices and digital and access to the internet need to really be put into place. And it's also important to teach children to keep themselves safe when it comes to digital technology. And another aspect to think about is how, when, and where devices are used and how they might outweigh the benefits of active play. So you can see in this photo, you've got, 3 children on the swings with their mobile phone. I mean, ideally, that would be active play, but it's not. So, it's really important to sort of think about when is it appropriate to have screens, when is it not, and making those decisions for and with children as well, so they begin to understand that digital technology isn't something for every day, 24/7. So just finally, we've got a few more things to uh, um, go through here, and I've just actually noticed some people had their hands up. So when we get to the end, hopefully we'll have a few minutes for question and answers. So if you've got your hand up, maybe you can pop your question in the Q&A chat that we can have a look at before. And if they're not answered today, then I think there's some opportunity for the answers to be either emailed out to you or some way that the answers will get to you. So one of the things I wanted to do, just to sort of finalise tonight, is think about how we plan for play. And the early years planning cycle provides an opportunity for us to think deeply about play and how children engage in play and how it supports their learning and development. So when we watch children play and observe them play and take observations, we begin to think about what's actually happening behind the play. What prior knowledge do they have? What that they're now using in play? And how can I extend this or build their knowledge further? So our role is to think about the joy and wonder that children are experiencing while they're in the middle of play, and how their interests and ideas are building, how we can provide opportunities for sustained shared thinking and progression. So the EYLF mentions sustained shared thinking quite a bit. And it's a little bit like serve and return that I talked about earlier on. The EYLF defines sustained shared thinking as when 2 or more individuals, often adults and children, work together in an intellectual way to solve a problem, clarify a concept, or evaluate activities. So in our planning for children, it's important to intentionally plan for these opportunities to happen, opportunities for sustained shared thinking. In addition, Quality Area 1 in the National Quality Standard asks us to think deeply about children's learning and development while they play. And it prompts us to think about our current and future curriculum decision-making for and with children. So specifically element 1.3.1, which is assessment and planning cycle, states each child's learning and development is assessed or evaluated as part of an ongoing cycle of observation, analysing learning, documentation, planning, implementation and reflection, which is what Nadine was also talking about. And one of the first questions that I asked her is how she engages with the planning cycle. And this means that even as we're engaged in playing with children, we're learning about them even more, their knowledge, skills, ways of thinking, and so then we can plan further for them. Well, what does it mean in terms of assessment? So how do we assess play and learning while we're immersed in play and learning? The EYLF version 2 provides some clear guidance on how we can go about doing this. And it looks at their learning, development and well-being, which has been added in this version as well. We can use both formative and summative assessments. So formative assessment is assessment for learning. It's like assessing as you're going along the way. And as you assess, you make different decisions, you change things up, you keep moving forward with it with children. And summative assessment is assessment of learning. So it's more like a point in time where you might assess children at that particular point in time and then sort of see where they've progressed from a previous point in time. Involving children, though, in their own assessment is really powerful, and it builds their awareness of themselves and what they know, what they can do. And through their own self-assessment, children can make sense of their growth. They can see how far they've come. They can identify what challenges and struggles they've had, and that's part of life, how they can overcome them, how they have changed to be the person they are now, like they've been transformed in some way and they can do things that they couldn't do before. And also it's equally crucial for all aspects of development, including social, emotional. So this is, when children are self-assessing, they're really starting to think more about themselves and learn more about themselves and their identity as well. So when you're writing about play and documenting children's learning, it's really important to think about their strengths and capabilities. It's often we've got a sense of pride when we're jotting down the new things that they've learned. Like we get really excited about it and we love to hear about it and we just need to write it down. And writing about their challenges and struggles, though, is a bit trickier because we're still using strength-based language that helps to see the child always with potential, so high expectations for children. But we do need to make sure that we've identified gaps so that we can support them in helping them address those gaps as well. So, for example, if we've got a child who is struggling to regulate their emotions, a deficit-based approach might state, Josie does not know how to control her temper. She hits and lashes out at others when she wants their toy. So that's sort of seeing Josie in a bit of a negative perception and seeing that, she's struggling with something, but it's actually we're looking at Josie, through a deficit lens. So rather than that, what we need to try and do is understand their struggle. So what is their struggle to be able to do these things? How can we support her through it? So instead, we could write, Josie finds sharing toys challenging. She's learning to express her wants verbally and developing patience for her turn rather than taking items from others. So it still includes the struggle that Josie is having, but it highlights an important challenge for her. It doesn't label her as a problem. Instead, it supports the social emotional learning that's in progress for her, and that sometimes some children take a bit longer. So documentation can be simple. It does not need to be elaborate and can be written with children while they are with you. They can be part of the writing. After all, you're writing about them. They will probably want to know what you're writing about. And the process also includes understanding what the observation is telling you. And by sharing this with the child, they learn to understand and address their struggles too. So whilst also celebrating the things that they've overcome and their achievements. So it helps children to bring a strong sense of their own capabilities and their self-efficacy, which is the ability to see yourself as capable, see yourself as being able to do whatever that thing is. So play is powerful, and so too is the memory of our play through meaningful documentation where we do this with the child. So that sort of ends our evening, but I just wanted to be able to read through these key messages that you can take home with you. Number one, play is powerful, and we have important roles in play. Number two, research tells us that positive play experiences contribute to brain development that helps children learn better and regulate their emotions. 3, play can be planned for or spontaneous, where educators and children can take turns in leading the play. 4, play requires us to be physically, mindfully, and emotionally present, where children and educators are both intentional. 5, safety considerations and effective supervision processes are required to enable children's freedom to play and be safe at the same time. And finally, effective documentation of the learning and development that occurred through play can be done with the child, not just of the child or for the child, but with the child. Okay, so that's sort of, we are right on, I believe, almost, we've got a few more minutes actually. Now, did anybody have any questions? There are a few people who had their hands raised. Okay, good question. How to organise risk-taking games, sometimes hard to arrange. Well, you've got to follow some rules. I think sometimes you'll be able to discuss these rules with children as well. So if it's risk-taking games, you have to make sure that that risk is not outweighing the benefits of playing the game, and that you've taught children also to think about possible consequences as well, and look at what are the rules and what is fair. And so children are generally able to come up with some of those answers as well. So I hope that answered that question. How can you get the booklet? The booklet, it will be available on the website once this is posted on the website. If you want to watch this video again, it will be on the website. You can see up there, hopefully you can see it. And it's PD in your pocket, or just type in PD in your pocket. And also there's a Facebook group too. Just type in PD in your pocket on Facebook. I hope you've had a lovely evening, and I understand a lot of you have to go now, so that's absolutely fine. And yeah, it's been wonderful to spend the evening here chatting with you. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy your evening, and hope to see you again.